desperation, doom voting, and being harvested for the benefit of the Democratic Party no longer works for people who look like me. Under Doge, since the inauguration of the fascist regime of Donald Trump, the largest demographic of black, brown, and red individuals who contributed to blue states, paid taxes, and financed this American system was decimated. Democrats did absolutely nothing. Now, I'm not going to address white people, podcasters, who say that we need to vote harder. We need to get out and vote. Because we're beyond that. We're beyond a general strike right now because you didn't listen to Paul Lance. We're beyond peaceful protest. We're beyond all that shit. Because our legacy and our survival no longer rests on white people continuing to ignore the math and thinking that the solution to our problem is the same thing it was when Bernie Sanders was robbed of his 2016 challenge to Donald Trump. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying that every Democrat in Congress is like this. You know your names. AOC, Chris Van Hollen, Robert Garcia. You know the like. But the least among us, and I don't call myself a Democrat, I call myself a revolutionary, is going to be the likes of those people that don't get along to get along, whatever the statement is. At any rate, if you honestly think at this point, after gerrymandering, after voter purging, after ignoring the plight of the disabled, the veterans, and everyone else who paid into the system that you now enjoy and pay your salaries, is going to sit by while you run this same game on us, vote blue no matter who, those displaced individuals are more than exist in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, in the judiciary, and the, I don't want to call it a presidency, the regime combined. There are 340 million Americans living in the United States of America that could directly impact the things that are happening to black people under both parties. We have tried everything your way. And Democrats come back with that same old song. This is the most consequential election of our generation. We've been hearing that bullshit since 2016. Okay? When you robbed Bernie Sanders of the Democratic nomination at the DNC, you changed the trajectory and the growth of the United States of America forever. because it was Hillary Clinton's turn. Well, let me tell you something that's going on now. Every white podcaster in America, every doom voter, and every harm reduction individual can demand that we need to get out the vote. But you know what? The votes aren't there. The math ain't mathing. You have all of the southern states that you never campaigned in because you wanted to get that black money up in those cities where people could contribute to your campaign. But you lost all the votes that really mattered in all the places that were majority black. And now they have been gerrymandered. And guess what? They're going to be gerrymandered a lot more. This is the antithesis of racial equality and American democracy. And the Democratic Party is just as guilty of this and becoming more guilty of this right now than MAGA. In the state of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger did not last one Scaramucci after she got elected just days ago, before she folded on having the gerrymandering of the state of Virginia meet the gerrymandering of the MAGA regime. You can't even make this shit up. The Democratic Party is so weak and so tired that it has become tiring to me. Since 2016, we predicted, we knew. Why? Because I'm Generation X. And that shit started when, I call them the pantsuit mafia, headed up by Hillary Clinton and others, tried to convince people that 401ks were better than pensions from companies. And it worked. And while you were investing in your 401k, the company you were working for was investing in oil and big business and tech and all this other stuff. And when they suffered a loss, so did you. So when you went back to your 401k after you ignored it because you did not understand that this was the basis for your retirement, you found out you didn't have 20 years of pension. You had a few measly dollars because the company you were working for took their profit off the top. You know why? Sitting on the boards of those companies. So what they did was say, invest in this 401k. And dumb Americans did it. And they thought it was a retirement plan. They worked 20 years at some place like Beretta USA over in Accokeek, Maryland. And when they got what they were going to get, in a nutshell, it was nothing close to what they thought they were going to get. Now, Beretta USA left the state of Maryland because they had an issue with the gun lobby. They had been over years contributing multi-millions of dollars to the Democratic Party and the NRA. But when finally bump stocks or some kind of semi-automatic weapon was outlawed in the state of Maryland, or the sales of them, Beretta USA decided they were going to move to a southern state. What was left was their employees that had worked there for 20 plus years. Now, personally, I witnessed the absence of OSHA there. I worked there with no air conditioning when outside it was 100 degrees. I saw the types of weapons that were leaving there. I saw production beyond belief. And then when people came up for their reviews, one guy, having worked there for 20 years, you know what his raise was? 5 cents. But Democrats were okay with this because they don't talk to their constituency. They no longer talk to factory workers. But those factories are gone. They didn't talk to the people who graduated high school in 1990 and then left their jobs 20 years later with no retirement. They never talked to them. They just bullied black, Latino, and white people who were sympathetic to the cause to vote blue no matter who, time and time and time again. And as soon as they get in there, they pull a John Fetterman. And almost every last one of them has done this. You can check their record. Go to the website for your state. Find out what your representatives are doing and what they voted on. And you will find out that the majority of both Republicans and Democrats support genocide in Gaza. And you want us to vote for them? Really? Vote harder? For the people that put me in the position that I am in. Now, my personal income does not reflect this, but I live in the richest majority black and brown and red county in the United States of America. It exists in a place called Maryland. Right now, the majority of Maryland Democrats sign on to AIPAC. And also, our governor is in question because he is not trying to do the same things for the state of Maryland to save our democracy that the state of California did with this gerrymandering. He's AWOL on this issue. And every governor from a blue state has asked him, what are you going to do? And Westmore does nothing. And just when I was on the bandwagon, and that's how they do. Just when I was on the bandwagon, he got the fuck off. Now, you know shit is bad in both parties, and I trust neither one at this point. When you find at the grocery stores out front broke-ass white people traveling to black neighborhoods to beg for money for food. Yes, you can find that right here on Crane Highway at the Weiss and at the Food Line. And all up and down Crane Highway, we call it Route 301, you can find gypsies and all kind of people who are non-black begging for money. You know why black people aren't begging for that? Because we prepared ourselves to be disappointed. It is in our DNA to do so. Now, I'm a mixed blood Native American, black, and white person. And Latino. But I was brought up by people who are still here despite you. And all these white folks, they can, get on there and rant and rave and tell us the only way to solve this is the vote. Not for us. We've been gerrymandered out of the process already. And you haven't done the math. All these hippie types and all these people out there, these peaceful protesters and all that, have never endured the stories we have to hear generation after generation about how both branches of government at different times in our American history has failed us. And you continue to do so and ask us for our vote. And every time you get a chance to restore our faith in democracy, you fail. We get doged more. We get taxed more. We get gerrymandered more. We get oppressed more. So if you think for one moment that our eyes are wearing rose-colored glasses and you can invoke the name of someone like Martin Luther King or all those people who came before us who died in vain for this moment, you are sorely mistaken. Because we're not looking for what you promised us and didn't deliver. We're not doom voting. We're not being held hostage anymore by both parties. We have been hoodwinked. We have been bamboozled. We have been run amok. And it stops now. The choice for real Americans, people who look like me, is whether we're going to put $5 in the gas tank to vote for another individual in the Democratic or Republican Party, or if we're going to have meat on a holiday, something you take for granted because we pay your salaries. This is our reality. Even if we live in a big house. Because you know why? We don't have the audacity to go buy 5 houses or do insider trading because we got a job in Congress. We don't flaunt our wives and husbands on our websites in the greatest dress because we got invited here or there. We have to eat meat or not eat at all. That's what we do on the daily while you take your vacations, while you don't object to ICE raiding neighborhoods, while you go along to get along. So my last $5 that I have to spend is not going to be putting gas in the gas tank to go vote for you. My last $5 is going to feed my family. And you figure out how you're going to survive without us. Now let me be clear. No election in the United States of America for the United States president will ever be won without the black vote. Now, black citizens are not just comprised of descendants of slaves. They are naturalized. They are Muslim, Christian, and all other things. The dynamic of white proximity has not only taken over MAGA and the brainwashed white supremacists. White proximity also dominates the Democratic Party. Since 1987, Nancy Pelosi has been taking money from the Israel lobby. She's now worth something like $10 million. And white proximity has, from 1619, for some, been all that was necessary to make them feel accepted in the United States of America and to feel included. And so long as their particular family was taken care of, they were devoid of the needs of every other black American. Now let me explain this in the terms that people who are still of the generations that remember Jim Crow. Okay. And I've heard this in my time. There is the house Negro and the field Negro. And the field Negro is always going to understand that his charge in life, or her charge in life, is to be accepted by his or her people and to work tirelessly for his or her people. That never changes. Now, from generation to generation, the field Negro can become the house Negro. In the case of people like Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries. And in my time, I remember the High Yellow Standard. People who were acceptable to white folks based on the way they spoke, their mannerisms, the way they dressed. And this person was just acceptable enough to sell to American society, not at large. But for black society to think that the game still was not rigged. Because when you accept a population into a democratic process, you have to abandon all your restraints on them. This did not happen in the United States of America. Okay, since Reconstruction, and then the Civil Rights Movement, if you look back at people like Thurgood Marshall and I'm trying to think. I forget his name, but he was mayor of New York. Only people who reached a certain color standard were acceptable in American society, in the government, to represent people of color. That standard has extended to black people a shade darker. While people like Kash Patel and Vivek Ramaswamy and black people that are pro-MAGA were accepted wholeheartedly until such time as they were no longer useful. Well, so long as white people in the Democratic Party believe that everybody's going to vote blue no matter who, people like James Clyburn, it's okay not to go against the state of South Carolina because we no longer need him as a Democratic Party. Because the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers have now arrived on the backs of the harvested votes of the black population. So when we are assassinated in the streets, as we have been since the end of Reconstruction, when we are labeled because we might be pro-trans, or we might be socialist, or we might be anti-fascist, as domestic terrorists, you never hear white Democrats speak out against that. You don't hear that because they have their check. They have their retirement on the backs of Generation X and younger. They have theirs. They have health care. They have all of that. So right now, people like James Clyburn and the Justins of Tennessee and every black person that is about to be eliminated from our body politic, it's not okay just with white and Jewish and Latino Democrats. It is okay with white podcasters to assume that we are so desperate for acceptance in the United States of America that we can't stand on our own feet and support another option. We cannot take our demographic elsewhere. Because except for a few bootlickers, black people are not going to vote for Donald Trump. And it might not happen in 2026, but it will happen in 2028. Except for a few bootlickers, people are not going to vote for the Democratic Party either. Now, the vote blue no matter who movement might work for white people. But like I said, y'all are way fucking behind on what is actually happening for the black and brown people who are thankful for your help. But we can't worry about that now. We have to worry about us. We have to take care of ourselves. Like I said, I'm too fucking done. And a lot of people are. But I want to give a shout out to someone who I think is on the precipice and the catalyst of turning before November this motherfucker out. And his name is Kyle Kulinski. And Kyle, if you're listening, are you there? You and your wife need to go buy yourself a new suit. Seriously. You need to get your friend Hassan Piker and a few others. Like, I don't know, maybe Jesse Dollamore. Oh, let me think. Jack Cocherella. And y'all motherfuckers need to get your black asses out there and start campaigning for 2028. Because there is a new wind on its way. And those who don't vote Glow Clean are going to blow away. We're done with AIPAC shit. We're done with the Vote Blue shit. We're done with people who don't fight. The only fight I see is among the far left. Some of us are not going to live to see people like Kyle Kalinske and Hassan Piker to make it to greatness. Because we're going to be starved out of existence. But the rest of them are counting on you to keep speaking, don't be afraid, and make your communities continue to grow. Because you got something going here that is unstoppable. And both parties should be afraid of it. This is the Woke Socialist Podcast. Once again, please like and subscribe. Comment if you can. The algorithm on YouTube is severely fucked up, so it would help us out a lot. I'm not here to make money. I'm not making any money off this. I'm just here to impart whatever wisdom I can while I still have it. Thank you.